How long have you been weaving?
I've been working with textiles all my embroidery, I did knitting, all those things really early on. I was into those art forms quite a bit. I was actually designing my own things when I was a child.
What is the bakehouse?
So the bakehouse used to be a bread factory. That it is because there's camaraderie among other artists, and the artists that are in the facility, there are 60 studios, so there's all kinds of different mediums. Only a few people, including myself, are working in textiles. So there's a lot of stimulation, creative stimulation from other mediums, which is lovely. When I'm working there and I get to a point where I've sort of hit a wall, I'll just leave my studio and go for a walk around the building and see what other people are working on. And just the creative juice that's flowing in the building is compelling, and it's just like, oh, it's so exciting. Not that I'll go back to my studio and try to recreate something somebody's doing in sculpture, but it just gives you incentive. Somehow, we feed off of each other's energy. So then I kind of get renewed and I can go back in my studio and I'm like, okay, now, here's what I was doing. Now I'm going to keep going with this project. That sort of thing. So it's really quite a nice idea to be in and it alleviates the isolation. Because I was working out of my house for a long time. And I didn't really, I liked it because, there's certain advantages. You can work at any time of day. It doesn't matter what you're wearing. Those kinds of things. But then if you want to bring people in to see your work, they're too big to your house in a way that's workable. For example, if somebody comes to you and they say, I want something just like this, but I want, instead of this green, I want it to be blue. And so they don't actually want something just like that. They want something completely different. But you don't really know what's in their brain, what they're imagining. And you don't even know if they know. And if they really did know, they'd be designers, but they're not. So, and sometimes interior designers are the same way. They think that they can design everything, but maybe they're only really good at putting a room together. I don't know. But anyway, so it sometimes becomes difficult to translate what you think the client has in mind into what they've spoken of and what things that you've shown them in terms of here's some yarn samples or some textures, whatever. Here's some design ideas. And then, of course, when you stand at the loom and you start working on something, it doesn't always turn out the way you thought. Like, it might look really good on paper, but once you start weaving it, the yarn has its own way, the piece starts to speak to you, and this one shape, suddenly it just doesn't look right if you make it that big, so you need to scale it back, and so then the design changes, and that's all part of the creative process. I try to be really clear with them that the whole thing is my creative interpretation of their vision. And for them to, I try to encourage them to trust me that I'm a professional and this is what I do, and let's let this develop organically from the starting point, which was their idea. If you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it can be very difficult to deal with people. I have done one commission and she just gave me carte blanche and she loved it. So I had a great time with it. And that's the exception, not the rule. Right. So how has your work made it into museum collections? And which of your works have made it into museum collections?
Okay, so I'm only in one museum collection. I've shown in a lot of museums, but I only have one piece in a museum collection. It was part of a show, and they have it. It's part of their collection now.
And what museum is that?
It's I can't pronounce it. It's in Oaxaca, Mexico.
Oh, fantastic. Mm-hmm. And is that that's a tapestry, right?
It's a tapestry. Mm-hmm. It's actually 2 tapestries, and it was part of a project that was in conjunction, I believe it was in conjunction with American Tapestry Alliance.
Okay. And would you say that it's important to further an artist's career to have their work as part of a museum collection?
Well, it's certainly an ideal, and it certainly lends credibility to your level of professionalism or your acceptance by the public if a public facility like a museum or a private foundation or someplace like that purchases your work, then it's kind of like a pat on the back. Yes, I've made it. I'm in this museum. But similarly, when you're in a really good show in a museum or in a really good gallery, it has the same. I think it's the same level of acceptance into the art world. Well, my work is in private collections internationally, but I have not entered any shows internationally. I'm just really hesitant about sending, they're my children, I'm hesitant about packaging them up and putting them through customs and shipping them across the world to someplace where I don't know, I don't speak their language, and I don't know if I'm ever going to see it again. So that's my fear. Maybe I should overcome that and just go for it, but it would have to be a piece that I'm willing to, maybe I'll never see it again kind of thing.
I can tell you that, yeah, I can tell you that I've shipped several times overseas to different countries, a bunch of different countries, and I've always gotten my work back.
Oh, okay.
So
I have heard horror stories.
Yeah, I've heard a few, but I know that for every horror story, there's probably 100 success stories. The biggest mistake I ever made was over-insuring my work so that the cost was really, really high. Fortunately, I won the award from the show, and it more than paid for the shipping. But it was crazy high, so you have to be willing. What's the money going to do? It's not going to replace the piece. You still have to reweave it if you even want to. So I don't insure anymore, and I call them textile samples. That's the trick.
Textile samples?
Yes.
So it goes through customs?
Yes, that makes going through customs much easier. What they don't want is they don't want people from out of the country shipping something into the country to sell and taking business away from the people who live there. So
that's really good to know.
And when you insure, the insurance is what bumps the price up really high. So I sent something to Serbia and I insured it full price, and I almost fell over when they told me it was like $360 one way.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Well, I find after that I learned, but I won the award. I won 1,000 euros, so it was like $1,200. So it paid for the shipping and some. But that was my lesson. Don't bother insuring.
Yeah.
I've had things get stuck in customs because the shipper coming back didn't put textile sample on it, so it got stuck, and I had shipped it DHL and they took care of it.
Oh, good.
But you just have to know those are the tricks. Don't let that scare you off from shipping internationally.
Okay. I guess the other thing that I need to really look at, because I haven't explored so fully doing exhibitions overseas, is to know which places are like really reputable shows. I mean, I see them from time to time, but I mean, I don't know Norway, so I don't know.
Well, one way to tell is to look at who has been in the show in the past. So you could go to people who you respect and look at their resumes online and see what exhibits they've been doing, and then try to find them online. And ATA, I think they have a list of places to exhibit. Check that out. And then there are different magazines Hand Weavers Guild of America, the ATA newsletter, but then the American Craft Council has their magazine. There are other art and craft magazines. And if you look in the back, the Shuttle Spindle and Die Pot, they list national and international exhibits. If they're listed in there, they're probably safe,
Yeah,
so
that's a good point.
There's a really good one in China. There's the Lausanne Biennale, Atelier 61 in Novi Sad, Serbia. There's a bunch. Harry 3 hopefully is going to come up. It's spelled Heallreaf, but it's pronounced Harreef. It's pronounced Harreef. It means tapestry on a wall in Anglo-Saxon in the UK. So the UK is good, not terribly expensive to ship there. Some countries are more expensive. But again, don't insure.
Yeah.
And when you insure for a lot, it's a flag. What does an artist need to do to have a chance at success?
Well, it helps if you have money so that you can produce the work and promote the work and show the work. All these shows, as you very well know, are expensive to enter, and then you have to package and ship the work and have it returned. And you have to have supplies, and you have to have a place to work. So that's like the physical element. And then on top of that, you need a website. So then again, that costs money. So you need to be able to either produce your own website or pay somebody to do that for you. But either way, you still have to pay for hosting. You have to be able to produce really good photographs either on your own, or you have to pay somebody to do that. So those things are essential. The work has to be really professional. If you're going to photograph it and put it up somewhere, and I think it's really important, if you're trying to get your name out there, that the work has to look like it was done by a professional. So again, like the selvages need to be straight, the ends need to be finished, and it just needs to look the way you want it to look, and not like, oh, well, this is okay. No, you have to really be determined, because there's a lot of things that come along that will try to deter you or derail you, or people might say something stupid and it can hurt your feelings. And you just have to know that if you're good at what you do, then you're good at what you do, and do it. So be determined, have a plan, have a network of people that you can interface with, that get ideas with. That's one of the reasons I started the Guild, is so that cyber people in South Florida could come together and work on projects and do different kinds of things. And we all speak a language that other artists don't speak, so it's nice to have that kind of a network. If you do have a website, and pretty much I think everybody has one these days, but maybe not. But if you have a website, it has to be really good. It has to be updated regularly. Otherwise, people who visit it from time to time are going to be like, oh, yeah, that one. So I found that with myself recently. I started looking at my website through a different lens, so to speak. And I was like, oh, why are these photos still on there? I don't have this work anymore. This was something that was in process a long time ago, and that doesn't need to be on here anymore. I need to keep it current. I need to, just for my own sake, and then also for my visitors to come and look at what else is new here, and not just this website is stagnant. It needs to be dynamic and always changing. Other things that make it really helpful to be successful is to have a studio that's accessible to the public. In this town, free parking is a big plus because there's very little of it. So that's one of my happy points in my studio, is that we have free parking and the building's open to the public. I think it's really important to have a sense of humor with your art. Like, your art doesn't have to always be serious. It can have a little bit of some quirk to it. And then also, if you're dealing with the public, it's important to be patient and understanding, because people ask the same questions over and over again. If I had $1 for every person who asked me how long did it take me to make this, I would probably build my own studio somewhere, buy a property and build something just from those $1 for every time somebody asks me those kinds of questions. Because, the general public comes in, they look at your work, and they don't know what to make of it. And so rather than say something about, oh, I like the way you use these two colors together, they don't even know to say that. They just say, oh, so how long does this take to make it? Like, that makes it, because people work are paid by the hour, so I guess, in an office job or something. So I guess that's the value system there, is how long it took to make it, either upgrades it or degrades it in terms of, is it worth, why are you asking so much money for this? Well, it took me 6 months to make it, so, and I'm selling it for $1,000. So it's kind of a deal, don't you think? Would you work for 6 months for $1,000? I don't think so. So you have to have that kind of patience for dealing with the public, and with gallerists, and with curators, because my experience has been that gallerists and curators might be really well educated on a lot of things about art, but not necessarily about textiles as art. I've had curators come into my studio and say, "Oh, are you familiar with so and so?" And they'll throw a name at me of somebody who's not a textile artist and whose work is nothing, has no relationship to my work at all. And that's how they are trying to connect what they know with what I do. And it's actually not connected at all. So, other things, I think it's important to always be experimenting and trying new techniques or new colors or things. Just always be, life has changed. So it's really, I think, important and fun to try some new things. We can't always keep believing the same things over and over again. So I think that's important. And I think the most important thing, this is another question that you would ask, but I'm going to go segue right into that. The most important thing is that you need to believe in yourself. You need to believe in your vision, your work, your life purpose, and be strong enough to trust your intuition and let that guide how you make your work, and not because a gallerist or a curator comes in and says, "Oh, you should do stuff like so-and-so." Well, you're not so-and-so. You're you, and your work is unique, and it's wonderful because it is unique, because it is you. And so I think it's really important to stay true to that. Other than that, you become commercial, and you can crank out 1,000 somethings that are quick and easy. Maybe I see that on the internet all the time. People, if you have a vision and you want to do one-of-a-kind work, then you need to stay true to that vision.
What is your market? Who are your buyers of tapestry?
My buyers are mostly over 40 in general of all my work. Mostly it's an older market. Once in a while, I'll have something that's kind of quirky and trendy that I'll produce. Sometimes I'll just come across some material that I think, some yarn or whatever, that I think is kind of interesting, and I'll just do something kind of off the cuff, quick and easy, and that'll sell to somebody younger. But in general, my market is definitely over 40, and I would say professional, educated people who are more in tune with cultural things in general than younger people who are looking for, "Oh, isn't this cute?" Flash, quick, disposable kinds of, products.
That's what I expected you to say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is there anything else that you want to add?
I would like to see a change in the way we present textile art, both visually and verbally. I would like to call non-professional weavers casual weavers rather than hobbyists. I don't like that word hobbyist. I think it diminishes the value of their work, and it presents it as being less than something that is done by anyone else. I just think it has a bad connotation. So to call somebody, and I know a lot of people in American Tapestry Alliance consider themselves hobbyists and maybe don't ever apply to shows because they don't think their work is that good. But maybe it actually is. And I just think that tagging them with that word is kind of, I don't want to say demeaning, but I think that people who don't weave as a professional avocation should have a higher, some kind of a title that's higher. That's why I came up with casual weavers, because, it's casual, but it's art fair in Miami Beach, and there was a gold-plated chain link fence. And then another year there were several dress forms, I'm going to say 3, and they were covered with baby bottle nipples, specific to a niche of collectors who are looking for investment. I think the other thing that's really trendy contemporary art right now is, just in general, art is always a reflection of our environment, our social environment, our physical environment, emotional state of things. And there's so much disarray right now. I mean, maybe there always has been, but especially there's so much disarray right now. And so a lot of the art that I see has elements of deconstructionism, things that are being torn apart, or things that are showing the ugly underbelly of society, and those kinds of things that, and I think the general public resonates with that because that's what they understand. That's what they see on the nightly news. That's what they see on their social media feeds. They just see, bad things are happening everywhere, and so the art reflects that. And so, good or bad, that's what people, I think, sometimes gravitate towards. I've had people come to me, other artists actually, have come to me and looked at my woven pieces and said, but you should probably unravel some of that and have a lot of loose ends dangling off of it. It would be more popular. And I'm like, I just spent how many months weaving this thing and you want me to dismantle it? Are you crazy? Like, that's just, even artists, they don't understand what this is, that I'm not dismantling. I feel like when I'm sitting at my loom and I'm weaving, I'm taking disparate objects and energies and putting them together in a cohesive, balanced, harmonious way. And in a way, it's creating an energetic field of harmony. And that's what I think weaving is all about for me, is creating harmony in a world of disarray.
Pamela, thank you so much.
You're welcome.